So it's 6 o'clock, so I guess I'll get started. Okay, so today we will be going over VLANs and other additional things. So from last class, we did the Cisco packet tracer simulation, and then we built a network topology that is similar to this, where we got a router connecting to two switches, and then each of these switches connect to two hosts. So let's imagine that we are in a workplace, and the workplace has different departments. So in this example, we got the engineering department on the left side, and then our sales department on the right side. And for organization purposes, we want each of these departments to have their own network name. And network name, again, is your IP address with the AND function of your subnet. So this network name in the engineering department would be 192.168.0.0, and then this one would be 192.168.1.0, and that's assuming that you have the 255.255.255.0 subnet mask, but that's the one that is normally used. So we want each one to have, so we want each department to have a different network name. But what if a business has multiple buildings, and then inside these buildings are also split into network? So as we know, each switch is basically their local network. So if we want, let's say the sales department, if we want the sales department in this building right here to be in the one network, but then the network one switch is in the other building, we're gonna have to connect a wire from this building or this switch all the way to the other building. And same thing with the engineering department in the other building. So this is obviously not a very efficient method. And yeah, it's gonna cost a lot of resources. So there is something called a VLAN, and this is basically just instead of having your switch connect with the router, we're having the switches connect with each other. And basically a VLAN is it's like splitting something into categories. So right here, you can see that the engineering department, there should be a VLAN, is VLAN 100, and then sales is VLAN 200. So we are saying the sales section is VLAN 200, and then the engineering department is VLAN 100. And another way to think about this is to just imagine that these two switches connect to each other. We just connect them and then basically make a bigger switch, or a big switch, or a super virtual switch. So we're gonna get into the packet tracer now. Let me just share screen that. Okay. Okay, so this is from last time. We got our home network here, but we're not gonna worry about that. So this is gonna be the normal network, or without VLANs. So let's go back to the scenario where we got two different buildings with two different departments. Okay, so what we want to do is basically first just click on a blank area, because we want to delete some wires because we want to change it. So to delete something, you just gotta click on a blank area anywhere on your screen, and then click on this backspace or delete button right here, and then select, we're gonna just select this wire. And because we also want PC2 and PC3 to swap places, but also connect to the other switches, we're also going to delete these two wires. Oh, well, I don't know why I deleted all that. So we're going to delete that wire. Yeah. If that happens to you, you can just press Control Z, and that should bring everything back. And then you can try to delete the wire and not everything. And PC2 and PC3 want to switch spots. So we already got all of our hosts, switches, and routers and stuff. So we want to first start by connecting them. So let's first connect the switch here. Well, we're just going to start with the computers then, because the switch doesn't like to get clicked on. So we're going to connect the computer. Let's just connect PC3 to fast Ethernet 0, 2. And then this one, connect to switch 1. Okay, and then we want to connect these switches together. We're just going to use gigabit Ethernet 0, 2. And then because we got two separate networks because we have two different switches. So we got like network 1, network 2. That means we need two different default gateways, which is basically this router's port IP. Because back to the airport analogy, let's say each switch is a waiting room. They both need their own exits. So in order to do that, we need to have two wires connecting from the switch to the router. So we can just use fast Ethernet 3 and then just connect it to gigabit Ethernet 0, 1. It doesn't matter if it's different like types of port because it will still work basically. Okay, so now that we got all that set up, now we just need to set up the VLANs. So to do that, you want to click on switch 0, and then it should bring you up to this page. Okay, and then go to CLI, which is just the command line interface. Press enter, and then we're going to do we need to first enter the configure mode. So to do that, we got to first type enable. And then once you type enable, you need to type configure terminal. And again, you can finish your sentence with the tab button. So once you're in configure terminal mode, to set a VLAN, we just type VLAN and then the VLAN name you want to set it. So in this example, I'm just going to use the number 100. So VLAN 100. And then to name the VLAN, you just type name and then whatever you want to name. So let's just call 100 the engineer department. Also, another important thing to note, like the name doesn't matter. It's more of just labeling it. So if you name it like a string of random letters, it should still work. But for organization purposes, it's better to give them actual names. So we got our engineering department, and we are going to exit VLAN 100 interface. And then we need to create a second VLAN, which we can just call 200. So create a second VLAN called VLAN 200. And then we will name this the sales department. Okay, great. So we have set up the two VLANs on switch 0. But now we gotta like actually assign these hosts to their to the different VLAN. So let's just assume PC1, PC2, they are in the engineering department. So we want to assign those guys VLAN 100. So to do that, we need to first find the wire or the port that we connected to PC1. I'm not sure what the port was. So one way to it's probably one of the fast Ethernet ports. Fast Ethernet ports. So we can try fast Ethernet 0, 1. And once we enter fast Ethernet 0, 1 interface, the easy way to check what port you are editing is to just type in the command shutdown, which basically closes the port off, and those green triangles you see on the screen should turn red. So that means we are editing the port that is connected to PC1. So once we verified it, you want to turn it back on, and to do that, we just type no shuts down. And this should soon turn into green triangles. So to actually like use the assign the VLAN to PC1, you got to type in a command, which should be somewhere on the slides. And right, so basically, we've already connected to or we entered the interface, the correct interface. So what we need to do is the mode or the ports, they have different modes, and to like give a port a VLAN, you want to change it to the access mode. So to do that, you type in the command switch port mode access, and then switch. And this basically just sets the switch port mode to access. And then you want to type switch port access VLAN 100, because we want to set this interface to VLAN 100 because that's the engineering department. So that's basically all there is to the VLAN, because we just set PC1 to VLAN 100, and now we want to do the same thing for PC3. Also, I did look at a cheat sheet, and I do recommend that if you are doing a Cyber Patriot competition, that you should create your own cheat sheet of commands, because there are quite a lot of commands, and it's very helpful if you like just compile them all in a single document, and you can use it as a reference sheet. And it's not like cheating or anything. It's just very useful because you forget things sometimes. So we just assigned PC1 to VLAN 100. So we're going to exit. We're going to find the port that connects switch 0 to PC3. I'm just going to guess it's going to be fast Ethernet 02, because that's the next in line. And to check that, we just shut down. And that confirms that we are on the correct port. So we turn it back on with a command no shutdown. And we basically do the same thing with PC1, where we do switch port mode access. So we change the port mode to access, and then switch port access VLAN 200, because we want PC3 to be in the sales department. So we're giving it a different VLAN. And that is all for this, for the computers. And there's one more thing. So this wire that is connecting this switch also needs to be configured a bit, because it's called like, should be called there's a different mode of ports, sort of like access mode. There's a mode called trunk mode, and that just means it's the mode where switches connect to each other. So to do that, we need to find the interface for this wire, which should be one of the gigabit Ethernet things. So we go to interface, gigabit Ethernet, and I believe it is 02. Before we do anything, we want to first check if we are correct. So we're going to shut it down, and then we have confirmed that we are on the correct interface. So turn it back on, no shutdown. And to do that, we basically change the mode. We just do switch port mode trunk. And that just changes this port to the trunking mode. And there are also other commands in it type. Okay, yeah, switch port mode trunk, and then we don't need to worry about this command right here, so ignore that for now. And we just need to do switch port trunk allowed VLAN, and then you just type the VLANs that you want to like be allowed, basically. So we have VLAN 100 and 200. Make sure to separate them with commas. Okay, so we did that. Now now that switch should work. So we can close that off, go back to packet tracer. Okay, and now we do the same thing with switch 1. So we got to first set up our VLANs again. And your VLAN numbers should be the same as the other ones, but the name doesn't really, it's the same. So again, we got to first turn into the configure terminal mode for the switch. So we do enable, or enable is also, you can type en short for enable, and we got to type configure terminal, and then another way to type it is just conf t. That also works to enter configure terminal. Oh, and basically we just do first got to create VLANs. So we got VLAN 100. We're going to name it engineer. And then we're going to create VLAN 200. And we can name that one sales. And again, these names don't need to match up. Names are just a label. Like they don't really, they won't change anything if you type it differently. Okay, and we got to do the same thing for these ports. So we got to enter the interface of, it is probably fast Ethernet 01. And before we do anything, we want to check if I am correct. And I am correct. Also, an important note, if you're actually doing like a bigger project and there's this, you should label your lines, because this is like, I can sort of keep track of all the names on all the ports and stuff, but for a bigger project, it's best to just label each line so you know exactly which port is what. That will help a lot, and you don't need to do my shut down or turn off and then turn back on to check if it's correct. So we're going to do the same thing as last time. Switch port, mode access, then switch port access, VLAN, there should be PC2, so 100. That is all for PC2, and we want to move on to PC4. So interface, fast Ethernet, 02. We're going to do the shutdown and no shutdown to check if I'm right, and it seems to be correct. We're going to do the same thing, switch port, mode, access, switch port access, VLAN 200. Okay, and now we got to set up this port. Should be gigabit Ethernet 02. So interface, gigabit Ethernet 02, and then we're going to do shutdown, check if it's correct. Yep, and then turn it back on. And we're going to turn this port into trunking mode, because this is connecting a switch to another switch. So to do that, you just, again, switch port, mode trunk, and then switch port, switch port trunk allowed, and then your VLANs, which would be 100 and 200. Okay, so the switches are all set up. So now these computers in the same VLAN should be able to connect to each other. We still haven't set up our router, but because they're all like connected in the VLAN, they're basically virtually in the same room. So you can think PC2 and PC1 are in the same waiting room. We would call it PC3 and PC4 are in the same waiting room, even though they're not on the same switch. So to prove that works, we can ping PC1 to PC2. And hopefully it works. So we're on PC1, so we're going to do the ping command. We want to find the IP of PC2. So click on PC2, go to desktop, IP configuration, 92.168.0 and 101. So let's go back to PC1, the command prompt. We're going to ping 192.168.0.101. And it should work, yeah. Reply from PC2. And to prove that even though these guys are in the same switch, physically, they will not be able to connect to each other because they are on separate VLANs. So PC3 should just be 100 and then 1, or yeah, 1. So 192.168 and 1 and then 100. And we're just going to make sure. So check PC3, go to desktop, IP configuration. Yeah, it is correct. And if we ping that, we shouldn't get any replies. Yep, request timed out. We did not get any replies. So even though these guys are on the same switch, they're like basically at the same time in a different network. So you're just kind of splitting the network up. into virtual categories. So to ping from PC1 to PC3, we need to have our router set up. So you got to click on router, go to CLI, go to enable, and then configure terminal. And so the reason why we cannot ping from PC1 to PC3 is because the default gateway isn't working, because the last time each network has to have their own default gateway. So network 192.168.1.0 used to have their gateway, which was switch 1 to router 0. That connection was their gateway, but because we removed that and we moved it here, we basically just need to reset up the gateway. Okay, so all we got to do, we got to enter interface mode, fast Ethernet 0 1, I think. No, it was not fast Ethernet.
Switch. Oh, it's that. You just have to switch to wait. That port will wait on 100.
Right. Okay, I think I missed something. So basically what I was supposed to do is the switch needs to do the VLAN thing. So let's close the router thing first. Yeah, we scroll here. Okay, I'm not sure what interface they are, but we can test it out. Interface. Oh, we're already in interface, so we gotta exit first. Okay, so interface. This one was gigabit Ethernet 0.1, I think. Before we do anything, we want to shut down, and that is not the correct port, so we're gonna turn that port back on, and then exit. All right, actually, I think it was fast. Okay, yeah, interface fast Ethernet 0.3. I think we can test it with the shutdown. Yeah, that's correct. No shutdown. Okay, so its interface is fast Ethernet 0.3, and then yeah, we got a switch port. Switch port mode. Access. Yeah, just that. So we turn that to access and then switch port. Access. So we are on this line, which is supposed to be connecting to the 192.168.1.0 network. And the VLAN that's correlating to that network is in fact VLAN 200. So we're just gonna switch port access VLAN 200, this one. And then we need to do the same thing with the other one connecting with the router, which we already found. It was gigabit Ethernet, right? 0.1, I think. Just to make sure we do shutdown, no shutdown. Yep. So that is the correct one. And we do the same thing except for VLAN 100. So switch port mode access. Switch port access VLAN 100, because this port that this default gateway is in the 192.168.0.0 network. So we need to put it in the 192.168.0.0 VLAN, which would be VLAN 100. So set up like that. And I think that's it. So before we ping anything, we want to wait for all the ports to finish. So we want to wait for this orange dot to turn green. And while we're waiting for that, we can pull up PC1, go to command prompt. Okay, that turned green. Go to command prompt and then ping, let's just ping PC4. And that that IP address should be 192.168.1.101. Also, please mute yourself because it can be distracting for others. Thank you very much. And so we're just gonna, should work so we can enter simulation and see if anything happens. So enter simulation mode again at your like left bottom part of your screen. Just press simulation, go to edit filters, make sure everything is unchecked except for ICMP. Okay, and then once that happened, type enter. Okay, and then you can sort of drag this away and then just press the play button and everything should hopefully work. So here's a packet. It should go to switch 0. Okay, and it needs to go to default gateway, which is router. So it should go to the router. And then it goes, full, the router, that one failed. But I think that's just because sometimes packets, when you first set something up, they don't work for some reason. So we can stop the simulation right now. Okay, so we just, right, so we already pinged it. So it should work this time, hopefully. So we ping it again. Then let it play. So it goes to switch, goes to router, and hopefully the packet is not lost at the router. Yeah, it seems to be completely fine. Goes back to switch 0, and then it should go to switch 1, which will travel to PC4, which will eventually travel back to switch 1, and then back to switch 0, and switch 0 should go back to router. Yeah, and then it goes back to switch 0 and back to PC1, and then that's one completed ping. And goes to PC1. So yeah, it works, which is great. So that's basically all there is for VLANs. And that is a pretty confusing idea until unless you worked with it for quite a while, but you guys are just learning this. So does anyone have any questions about this? Like any questions like why are there 2 ports here, or like just how they work in general? Yeah, okay. I don't think.
Okay, hold on. Let me June here. Let me add in 2 points. First, it's good that very good. Gordon mentioned that in the real work, either in a competition or in a real network. Okay, by the way, this tool is used by a real engineer. The real network can be, I mean, hundreds of hosts. I mean, lots of switch and router. So in the real work, people do a better document. First, Gordon mentioned people writing a note next to the router or switch. I mean, just people. Gordon, you can show how to edit a note. Remember how to edit a note? Just demonstrate that. It's in I think it's that. Yeah, you can just add in. Yeah, you can add in anything, right? It's
Well, for this,
Yeah, let's say building 2 or something like that, right?
sure. Or we could just call it by the port name, which was just
Right. Yeah. My point is there a better document. Also, there besides that, there there will be that document like a Word document or Google Doc document to have a detail. You know, which host to which VLAN or stuff. It's like table. It's if you go to a cyber security competition, there will be something like that. So yeah, but this is a demonstration only, so we didn't do a document it very well. But yeah, just let you know. Secondly, say that you may mention that the router in stick thing, Gordon.
right. Router on stick. It's a more complicated version of this. And it's basically making it so, as you can see here, we have 2 ports, one for each VLAN. And router stick basically can reduce this to only 1 port, and that requires more commands, but
Yeah, right, exactly. So the whole point is is a save a port and save a cable. So again, this is a very simple example of only 2 departments. I mean, it could be 10 department, right? If you're using this topology, you need a 10 port for each each router and each switch. The router in stick thing is exactly the same thing, but somewhat they combine all those wire from the switch to the router to a one cable.
yeah.
Yeah, it's that's same. But we choose to do that because I think this is easier to understand in term of topology. So I don't want to bring too complicated. I think it's already already maybe confused lots of people already. So yeah.
Also, another note, like Cyber Patriot networking competition, you're not building a network. You're more like they already have all the wires and stuff connected.
Mhm.
Like the only thing you're doing, you're just entering these switches and then you're just typing in the commands, or like maybe something like set PC4's IP address to blink. That should be easy to do. Or something like there might be some ports that are off. So you just go into the ports and then type no shutdown, and that's basically just points for you. And there can be other more complicated ones like set up VLAN 100 and 200 for certain departments.
Hey, Gordon, maybe you want to show that click one of the switch. Show that config.
Right.
Config
So,
tag. Yeah. Yeah, maybe explain to people to.
okay, so
Yeah.
to enable and then show running config.
Right.
So this is a lot of information. So it shows a lot of information about the switch. Basically, we don't really need to worry about all this stuff. Okay, starting from here, we got our interfaces and then like the mode to the ports and also what VLAN for each port. And these interfaces we're not using, so there's exclamation marks. Okay, as you can see, Gigabit Ethernet 02 is a trunk port, which is why it's stage part trunk mode. And also,
Yeah, that's basically, remember we talk about the hardware, the switch and router. There are different type of memory or storage. Basically, there are 2 kinds, volatile and non-volatile. Non-volatile is kind of like a memory. Is gonna, if you shut down your device, everything is lost. This is a config file. It's stored in the non-volatile. Means you set it up, you turn it off, you turn it on. All the setup still there. So that's one of the startup file. It's not one of, maybe it's only one of those. Yeah, the show command. Show command, besides there's a show running config, there's a lot of running. You can show a run VLAN maybe.
The show VLAN just basically shows you all the different VLANs we got. So as you can see, we got VLAN 100 and 200, 1 and 1002 are just default, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
right
There's a lot of show
here,
command. Yeah.
we see the names of the VLANs and then what ports are connected to each VLAN.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's show VLAN. There's a lot of show commands.
Yeah. Can you go to the config tab next to the save? Yeah. So this thing, lots of, I believe all the Vlan does can be done here. For
Yeah.
example, click the physical 01 fast Ethernet. You can turn it on and off there.
Yeah.
It's
And
basically did the same thing.
And see, we entered this interface, and then over here it shows like what command we're doing. So
Right.
interface fast Ethernet 01, and if you press this, if you turn it off, it should just say shutdown. Well, we can't see it, but if you scroll up, it has shutdown and then no shutdown. Can't see it, but if you scroll up, it should be there. Yeah.
So, but if you start doing just start to learn that, maybe you can play a little bit. Because it's easier. It's sort of like a GUI type of thing. It's easier just click using a mouse. But if you want to serious doing the competition, you need to use the CLI.
Yep.
Because
another note.
not all command available here. There's some simple type of code you can, but and this is considered a cheat, because in the real environment you do not have that asset. I do not believe you have. All you have is, connect the computer and connect into the port and type in the CLI. So, if you just start it. It's much easier using this, but don't stick to it. I know learning CLI is kind of a pain, especially at the beginning, but you need to use it.
Yeah, this page is straight up disabled in Cyber Patriot competitions.
Yeah.
So you need to learn CLI. And again, I recommend just having a cheat sheet of all the common commands you have. It helps a lot. And then you just really need to understand what commands you need for what scenario.
Oh yeah, another trick we want to share is that you can even copy and paste
right, yeah,
from text file into this. So for lots of the competition, the problem can be very complicated. You need to maybe import like hundreds of command lines. It will be nice. You can compile in the text editor and paste here. You can do a basically copy paste. Yeah, but yeah, you'll figure it out.
What I did in the competitions, there were some things that just so many commands you need to type out. So instead, we just kind of had like a template and then had blank spaces where you need to like fill out information. Maybe it could be like IP address or other things. And then we just put that in a TXT file, fill in the blanks, and then just copy everything into this, because you can copy multiple lines, which is a really nice feature, into this command line interface. So that's another tip for the complicated commands.
Yeah, another maybe we keep emphasize the analog of the waiting room and the terminal. That really help us a lot. The real competition, the problem, it can be a very complicated map. The first thing you want before you do anything, look at the map, figure out, where is the waiting room, where is the terminal? It could be a multiple terminal. If you're not getting this point, don't just type in the command. Just wish your command is right. If you're not figure out your topology yet, it's very unlikely you will make it right. So first thing first, make your mind clear. What is what? Waiting room terminal help us a lot to make sense of it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's basically all there is to VLANs. Of course, this is just a very simplified version. Can get pretty complicated. But hopefully you guys sort of understand the idea of what a VLAN is supposed to do and how to implement a VLAN. And then there are just a few other like notes we would add just to strengthen network security. Go back to slides. Right. So we got password encryption. So when you are, so routers and switches, you can add a password to them. So basically, if you add a password, if someone wanted to enable the switch, then the switch would ask for a password before it actually entered enable mode. It's not that, like, it's just one simple command. I don't really need to show it here, but password encryption basically means because your switch actually, or router, they will store the passwords somewhere, and it's pretty easy to access like where they're stored. So if you don't encrypt it, people can literally just ask the switch for like all its information and then look at the password. So password encryption basically means you are encrypting the stuff that is stored in the switch. Privilege. This is basically, privilege is basically just saying permissions for what you can and cannot do. Yeah, a very use or something that will help you strengthen security is to turn off all ports that you are not using, because if you have a port that is just on, even though you have no device already connected to it, some random outsider can just connect their own things, and it's probably, and they can do it pretty easily because it's already turned on. Yeah, don't use default settings. That's another big tip, because default settings are just easy to guess. Like maybe you get a new phone and then its default password is 1111, not a very hard password to guess. So you want to change the default password to something more unique. In this case, there will be like important things that have like a default number assigned to them, and you want to like change that number to make sure it's not default. Also, the event log. Your event log is basically, if you create an event log, whenever something happens, your event log will just write down what happened. So if I opened a port, then somewhere in the event log, it would say this switch or this router said open this port. So that's what the event log is. And finally, the firewall. It's firewall is just basically, it's like
It's
I
like a
guess you could,
parent blocked the YouTube video.
right, yeah, you just block things. That's literally all the firewall is. You just block things and protect yourself from other things. And that's basically all of the basics for network security.
Yeah, the network security, if you, again, in a real world or in a competition, there will be lots of stuff. But generally speaking, it's all of this. There are lots of command you need to put in your cheat sheet or trying to understand what it is. But basically, it's no different than normal computer stuff, except the firewall. Firewall, yeah, normal computers still also have a firewall. Yeah. So we are not going to much detail. There are just lots of commands to remember, and yeah.
Plus, there are a lot of points towards the VLAN sections. Like easily a lot of points can go to the VLANs if you set it up correctly. So I think VLANs is a really important thing to actually understand well if you want to get a lot of points at least. So yeah, we won't really be reviewing anything else because most of the other stuff are only worth like a few points, and they're all just a ton of commands and other stuff. So that's basically all there is to it.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Can you go back to one of the map thing?
Which one?
So yeah, after this Vlan and those basic topology, there are a new device called layer 3 switch. Remember, switch is layer 2 and the router is layer 3, right? I mean, there was new device called layer 3 switch. That thing, if you not understand VLAN well, is very confusing. But if you understand VLAN, you can just think of is a super box, have a router and a switch inside together. So yeah, it's in terms of topology, there's no difference. But again, as Gordon said, VLAN is very, maybe the most key concept you need to understand very well.
Right, so that's basically it. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? Okay, I will take the silence as no one has any questions. So I guess you guys can go 13 minutes early. Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.